Tēnā rau atu, ko Taranaki te maunga, ko Manganui te awa, puta noa kia Waitara, ko Pukerangiora te hapu, te atiawa te iwi, ko Ngauranga kura rangi niwa ahau, tēnei e kōrero ana, e toha ana e nei kōrero kia koutou ngā kura. Nō reira, he mihi nui tēnei kia koutou. Good morning. Well, we're sitting in a beautiful place under a beautiful atmosphere today, looking at our maunga in the background, and here to share this beautiful story about our history of Pukerangiora and the iwi of Te Atiawa. In the years of our ancestors living here, there would have been lots of foliage growing up here. The landscape's actually changed a heck of a lot. So we would have had a lot of native plants, harakeke, kawakawa, and all the flora and fauna aspects up here. Just below, over by the cliff, we have the river, so it was a natural resource for our people to come and settle way back in the day. This was all disturbed. Up to 160 years ago, the turmoil began here. Our ancestors lived through two scenarios. One in 1821 with northern tribes during the Musket Wars, and 1860 the beginning of the Taranaki land wars, which commenced down on the main road in above Waitara township called Te Kohia area, and on that area a model marae was established to more or less trick the Imperial Army, the Colonial War Army, because of the land sales that were taking place there at that time between two of our chiefs at that time. One wanted to sell and the other said, no, we're not selling land. So that was how the war began. Anyway, that was when the first gunshot was fired down at Te Kohia, 7 kilometres away from here. And then 2 years later, due to other land war skirmishes happening around in the closer area vicinity, the Imperial Army took their focus off Waitara, because that was their whole concept, was getting the land from Waitara. They took their focus from Waitara and went south Taranaki to the Taranaki iwi area and battled down there. 2 years later they came back to complete their ability to get the land here in Waitara. And so their journey, 7 kilometres to get here to this pa, where a lot of our ancestors were against them taking the land, they actually challenged the Imperial Army to prevent them from taking over this beautiful area and the land also around this area on Te Atiawa. And it took them a number of years to get here. This whole area is where they actually stopped, where the Imperial Army got up here. This was where they ended here. And if we look down there, we can actually see a line of sapping. The sapping was actually a form of a barricade for the Imperial Army to protect them against our ancestors, who mainly stayed up here. They were very, very clever people. They only had their taiaha, patu. They didn't have very many guns at that time. And they may have had a few, but not as many as the Imperial Army had in their access. Wiramukingi and Hapurono were the main figures throughout that land war. Wiramukingi was actually, he returned back from Wellington. He migrated down there during the Hikinga from the early 1800s. And when there was strife happening here with the army wanting land, he was beckoned home by his father. So he came home with his with about 400 or 500 people. And Hapurona is another main figure in the whole in that whole history. Hapurona was born in Taranaki. His dad was of Taranaki descent. His mother was of Pukerangiora descent. He was the one that established the Te Kohea Pā, which was just a model. It was done through trickery, to a decoy, and then he stayed with the people until they reached here, Te Are. Te Are Pā is where the saps are sitting. That's Te Are Pā, and that's the gateway into the main pā, which is where I'm sitting. Hapurona fought in the battle, and he actually, after the war, after the Imperial Army took over this land, he was old at that time. He was given permission to come here and live at Te Are. He lived here for 12 months before he passed away. Now, talking about Taranaki, the Taranaki iwi were part of the whole strategy too, to come here and help Te Atiawa. Now, if we look over into the Maunga side, we have a waiata that was composed about this war here in Waitara. And in that waiata, it mentions Te Iringa Niu. Te Iringa Niu is a puke that sits on Kaitake Maunga. And if I'm sitting here looking straight out over to it, Te Iringa Niu stands to it's the highest point, and obviously the story goes that this young girl was sent there to warn Taranaki and so that they could come, that there was war happening, and wanting them to come in and assist. And so this young lady, this young maiden, had the task of running there or going straight away to that site. And when she climbed up on that maunga, on that puke, she lit a fire, and smoke signals went up for Taranaki to know that there was need here in Te Atiawa. Hence the reason Hapurona ended up here was through that signal, that sign, that tohu. So it's an amazing thing, because lots of people, and even I've asked, why did they send a young girl? And the answer was always from our uncles and our ancestors. My grandfathers was like, well, they wouldn't have been able to send a young lad, a young man, because it would have been too suspicious. You know, if he was seen, they would have probably taken him in, and he wouldn't have got there in time. So they sent this young maiden, knowing that she would get there, and she did. So that's my story about Hapurona, who played a very major part with Wiramukingi here. He was Wiramukingi's right-hand fighter, and this is as far as the Imperial Army came. They didn't get up here because there was a truce. A truce was made, and Hapurona put his white flag up because he knew that a lot of his people would die anyway. And not only that, though, apparently the story goes that when they completed this area, a lot of the Imperial soldiers went further on over the hill. This whole area was in habitation at that time. There were people living in a lot of areas here. Now, there was a main pā that was attached to Pukerangiora called Pikatu Pā, and there was a connection with families. So when the army went up there, they burnt the carvings, they looted the marae, destroyed a lot of the pā up this road during that time. And so when they destroyed the pā coming up to Te Are, the people that were living in them just packed up and all ran here. So during the 1860 era, there would have been an immense number of people up here at that time who were all coming here for shelter, because This reserve was known as a safety compound. So whenever there was danger, people would gather here. And this is what happened in the 1821 siege, when Te Atiawa was under threat by the northern tribes. A lot of our Te Atiawa people came here for sanctuary, just to be safe here. So I believe that a lot of our ancestors fought their battle by laying up here. Along the cliff face, if I turn and point over to that side, that's just a sheer cliff face. The story goes that our ancestors actually tied themselves to the cliff somehow and still were able to battle with the Imperial Army that were over the side. So there have been some lovely stories shared during our Pūtake o Te Riri tour here, and we've had lots of people come in and talk about the stories. There have been lots of documented stories by writers in the past, but we've actually taken the responsibility to share our own stories and to help people to get our aspect and our side of the stories as well. So it is the hope that a lot of our stories that have come from other whānau and different war zone sites are going to be helpful for our schools and our learners to learn our history.